Hey and welcome to MFFLtv. I'm your host Dylan, and today we're just going to talk about some of the workouts the Mavs held, as well as a former Mav returning. So, before we get into it, like and subscribe. Check me out on Instagram, also on Twitter now. Haven't posted much, but I will try and do that. But let's get straight into it. If you haven't heard, the Dallas Mavericks did hold workouts for three different players: Isaiah Thomas, Monte Ellis, and Lance Stephenson. There's been no real reports if they're interested on signing any of them. I'd assume they would be if they were holding workouts for them. So let's get into the breakdown, see the pros and cons of getting into each player. Before that, let me know, would you want the Mavs to sign any of these players, or do you think they're just not worth it at this point? I will make my opinions known at the end. So starting with the first player, Isaiah Thomas. From reports, he was the one player that worked out that looked really sharp, as he is really trying to get a comeback in the NBA. His last season in the NBA, he had 40 games, 37 starts, 12.2 points and 3.7 assists. So while, yes, it was a couple seasons ago, he did still have a lot of production in him. He is able to provide a spark. He's a good scorer, good playmaker, and someone that could really help out this team. The pros of Isaiah Thomas is, as I said, he did look sharp in the workouts apparently. As well as that, he's very quick. He's got a lot of speed, very agile, can change directions really quickly. He's good scorer and has good playmaking. However, the cons, efficiency is always an issue. He does shoot around 40% for his career. However, he also did shoot about 41% for three in his last season, which is very good. So if he was to come, at least he is a good 3-point shooter. His one thing though is his size, isn't it? If he was 6 foot plus, 6'3", he'd probably be one of the best point guards in the league. Unfortunately, he isn't, and for that, his defense isn't the best just because he's always undersized. However, he plays with a lot of heart, so that's one thing that I think doesn't necessarily counter that, but it's also a plus. I think he can be a really good boost off the bench, someone that hypes up the fans, can come alongside Brunson. With a secondary unit, you're typically guarding less skillful players, I guess, when you're guarding the bench unit. And I think that sort of mitigates his mismatch as often, as he's not going to be really going up against the elite players in the NBA. And I think he's someone that we should really look at, sort of as that like JJ Barea role. Doesn't need to play every game, but he's someone that when things aren't going well, you can chuck him in and he can change the game with his energy, scoring, and playmaking. So honestly, I'd definitely take Isaiah Thomas. I think he still has a lot in him and he's really hungry to try and get back into the league. And probably like Melo, really wants to prove that he's not done. So I think whoever does pick him up will see a really good Isaiah Thomas. Moving on to the former Mav, Monte Ellis. His last season, it was a few seasons ago, but he did average 8.5 points a game, 3.2 assists, and 2.8 rebounds in 34 starts. What could Monte Ellis do for us? He could probably also provide a spark off the bench. He's quick and agile. Put a little asterisk there because I don't know if he is still. He's been out of the NBA for quite a while. Another pro, it's always nice to bring former Mavs back. That's sort of been the theme of this offseason, so I wouldn't be surprised if this happened. However, the cons, his last season was 2016-2017. Inefficient scorer as well, and a below average 3-point shooter. While he's taller than Isaiah Thomas, he is also undersized for that shooting guard position. So I think of the two, I'd be most inclined to take Isaiah Thomas. I just think he still has it. I think just, his one problem is his height and defense, but I think we can try and find a way around that. We did that for so many years with JJ Barea, and I think Isaiah Thomas would be perfect as that third point guard, can also play backup in that second unit next to Brunson. And I think he's someone that can, keep the team alive while Lucas sits. And I think, we don't really have too many players that can do that at the moment. So I'd definitely still go with Isaiah Thomas. However, there is still one more player, Lance Stephenson. So his last season for the Lakers, he played 68 games, had 3 starts. He averaged 7.2 points, 3.2 assists, and 2.1. Sorry, that's meant to say 2.1 rebounds. So what could Lance do? As you can see, I put him as a wild card as both a pro and a con, because when you put him in, you really don't know what he's going to do. He can electrify the crowd with his razzle dazzle, make a nice play, and get the whole team pumping. Or he can also, have a few plays where he takes bad shots, tries to do too much, get some turnovers, and it sort of doesn't look great. However, in that last season, he did improve as a three-point shooter, and he's an above-average playmaker. Although he does, sometimes be a bit turnover prone, he can make really good passes, and especially off the bench, I think that's someone who we could really use. I think personally, I'd still take Isaiah Thomas the most, just because I think he's probably the hungriest and wants to really prove that he can still play in the NBA. He did look the sharpest in the workout, and I think he can be someone that just comes in and is an electric scorer. And off the bench, I wouldn't be surprised if he drops 20 on any given night. Similarly, Lance Stephenson could provide a spark off the bench. Honestly, I wouldn't mind him also playing next to Brunson in that second unit. He's, bigger. He's a good defender. He's someone that's a bit of a dog, gets up in your face, he's rough. So I think if I was to really rank the three, I'd go probably Isaiah Thomas 1, Lance Stephenson 2, and Monte Ellis last in terms of who I would go after. But let me know, do you agree? Do you disagree? Or do you just want none of them at all? I wouldn't mind Lance. He's an energy guy. He's fun. I think it's someone who can just come in, potentially change the game when it's not going well. But we'll have to wait and see what the Mavs end up doing. And lastly, we got a former Mav returning apparently. Tyson Chandler has come on board to mentor Moses Brown. I really like this. From what I've heard, he's not going to be really involved in the coaching or anything. He's just going to be there to help Moses with his development. And I think that's really good. If you can teach him how to become a defensive anchor, how to communicate, lead that defense from the back line, I think, Moses can really help us out. As well as that, just bring that competitive spirit and, just try and toughen him up a bit. I think Tyson Chandler is the perfect person to do that. And I'm really excited just, to see where Moses Brown goes. This does also show that Brown probably won't be involved in a Dragic package. I thought that anyway, just because they did introduce him in that press conference. It would be weird to just trade him the next month. So now, I'm really keen to see him. Could he maybe develop into our starting center over the season? Or does he really impress in training camp and just prove to Jason Kidd that he should be there? He's a really good rebounder, good shot blocker. Just needs to learn about when to try and go for the blocks, because apparently he does get exposed quite a bit. And that often leads to him getting fouls, bailing the other team out. So, look, I'm keen to see what Tyson Chandler can do for him. I think it's a really understated thing of having a veteran, lead you through the NBA, especially when you're young and you still have so much to learn. I think this is a good pickup and is really going to help his development. But, as always, guys, let me know what you think. I'm really keen to always hear it out. Love having discussions with you in the comment section down below. As always, like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and I'll see you in that next video.